everybody. So I just wanted to keep my little comparison series going. I've been talking a lot about this Phoibos since I've got it, and I think pairing it up against the Seiko 5 is a fair comparison, and I want to take a dive into that, pun intended, and see which one I really truly recommend for you all. Right off the bat, let's start with the dimensions. The Phoibos is slightly smaller. It is a 39 millimeter case size, and it is 13.5 millimeters thick. The Seiko 5 is 42.5 millimeters case size, also 13.4, 13.5 millimeters thick. I think for this watch size and for the general public, 39 millimeters is a much more appropriate case size. I do recommend the Phoibos for that. The thickness is a little chunky on both, but I think it feels even chunkier with the larger case size. So I do give the win in that category to Phoibos for overall, case size, design, wearability. Next up, we'll do movements. They are very comparable movements. Some people say they're identical. Seiko uses, the 4R36 versus the Phoibos uses the NH35. They're both hand winding. They're both hackable. They have date variations and non-date variations. So movement-wise, I'm just going to call this a straight-up tie. Even if they were slightly different, you're getting the same accuracy and the same functionality out of both of them. So there's really no winner there. They're both great movements. And I mean, it's a tie, but they're both winners. They're both really good. You'll be happy with either of these in the movement category. Next up, let's talk about bracelets. The Phoibos has those weird kind of vertical links, but they do make an oyster version. I haven't worn one, so I really can't comment on it. But the Seiko bracelets, I'm not a fan of. Clasp on this watch, huge win for Phoibos. It uses, the San Martin style kind of buttony clasp. It's really nice, it's really comfortable, and it feels solid. Those Seiko clasps always, to me, just feel like kind of garbage. Assuming that the oyster bracelet on the Phoibos is equal or potentially better, but most likely equal, I'm going to give the win overall bracelet-wise to Phoibos because of just the clasp alone. But I think you'll have a more comfortable wearing experience with the Phoibos over the Seiko 5. Next up, I want to touch on variety. There are plenty of versions of the Seiko 5 out there, but to me, they're all kind of the same thing. They just kind of mix up colorways. Sometimes they'll take a bezel off or add a bezel. But there are, I feel like, an endless amount of them. Phoibos has some cool different colorways, like a mother of pearl kind of dial and some other cool things. They also make a GMT version. I think the overall design is slightly nicer on Phoibos, but the overall, ability to find something that fits your personality or the sheer endless amount of them, I have to give the Seiko. There's just literally hundreds of them probably. You have special ones that they make, like, the Rowing Blazers version. They have this crazy one that has the exposed date and day wheel, which is really cool. But yeah, I'm going to give that to Seiko just because they have a sheer way larger amount of them. This one's a little harder to prove just because I haven't had to experience them, but I do think warranty-wise and issue-wise, you're going to have a much easier time fixing problems with Seiko just because of the size of the company and their legacy and their heritage. Phoibos is a smaller brand. You're probably going to have a little more difficult of a time with issues with the watch in general. I've heard great things about their customer service, but I still think you're going to have a much easier time dealing with anything that goes wrong with the watch if you do own a Seiko. The last thing I kind of want to talk is just creativity-wise. I think the Phoibos design and logo is a little cooler than the Seiko. I'll give it the win in kind of creativity and overall looks. I think just the design of, the hour indices and the hands and the logo are a little bit cooler. And in my opinion, I think that makes it a cooler watch, and you'll have more of a story telling people about it. But overall, just to sum it up, I do think the Phoibos is an amazing watch. I give it a very slight edge just based on some of the cooler things about it, but I think this is ultimately a tie. I don't think you're going to go wrong with either of these watches. They're basically in the same ballpark. The Seiko 5 is always on sale on Amazon in certain colorways. The Phoibos is currently on sale certain places. You could probably get many of them for well under $300. So I do think it's a very fair toss-up and a very even match. I'm going to give the slight edge to Phoibos just because I like that watch a little more at the moment, but I think objectively this is as much of a tie as you can get. So let me know what you want me to compare next, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.